San Diego Unified makes a quick pick for a new school superintendent. Dueling news conferences in Washington, but no action to stop the sequester. Was there a slip in cybersecurity training at San Onofre? Our investigations team reports. And instead of going to the movies, a local group has a new way of bringing the movies to you. KPBS Evening Edition starts now.
KPBS Evening Edition is made possible by Joan and Erwin Jacobs and by
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Eric Anderson. Dwayne Brown is off tonight. No big search, no long debate. San Diego Unified has selected a new superintendent just a day after its current one announced his retirement. She is Cindy Marten, the principal of Central Elementary School in City Heights. She was the school board's unanimous choice to replace outgoing superintendent Bill Kowba.
It is time for us to bring in an educator who has demonstrated that schools, even in the highest poverty neighborhoods, can be turned around for success. And we want this to happen across the district. So this is why we have decided to choose Cindy Marten as the next superintendent of the San Diego Unified School District.
The schools belong to the community. I often say at my school that I work for the children, I work for the community, and I want to show examples of how that works. So to hear the board had unanimously selected me to serve this grand mission is an incredible honor, and I sort of don't believe it.
The new superintendent says she is honored that she was offered the job. She stopped by our studios today and spoke with Peggy Pico.
Cindy Marten is expected to be confirmed as the new superintendent of San Diego Unified next week. But before she steps into her new role, Ms. Marten and San Diego Unified trustee Scott Barnett stopped by for a conversation about the new changes. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Cindy, congratulations on your new job position. Now, I just want to clarify this. You have essentially left from being the principal of an elementary school with a staff of 100 and about a $5 million budget to now being in charge of 14,000 staff members in a $1 billion budget. I know it hasn't been long, but do you have a plan to tackle this leap?
You know, my philosophy and leadership at my school will be the same as a superintendent, whether I'm leading in the classroom and teaching 20 children or an entire school or an entire district. My focus will be on children, and when you focus on children, you make decisions from that place. So I'm ready for the challenge. Okay, and we'll come back to the cost of focusing on children in just a moment. But Scott, I want to ask you, the process of finding a superintendent usually takes months, I understand, and it includes a community input. Why was it so fast, or some would say rushed, this time around?
Sure. Well, 5 school board members asked, as soon as we heard from Mr. Kowba that he was retiring, we were discussing it and said, you know what, we all agree, it was a eureka moment, we all agree that Cindy Marten is the best person to lead this district. Who better to lead the district on community-based reform than someone who's proven it in the community, who's best to lead this district to improve student achievement than someone who's proven it at her district. So the public will get to comment before the formal ratification and that, but Cindy's probably one of the most publicly known educators in San Diego already.
Let me talk about the public being able to comment, because a big component of the district's Vision 2020 plan is the schools being involved with the parents and communities. Some would argue that's not what happened here. You're saying they will have a voice. They will be able to step up and make comments.
Well, believe me, I'm already getting comments, and I've mostly good. In fact, so far all good. From all the way from La Jolla to Scripps Ranch to Southeast San Diego to Point Loma, people say we know Cindy Marten, we've seen her, and she's going to be a great leader. The bottom line is, of the 14,000 employees in the district, only 2 work for the school board, the superintendent and the general counsel. They're accountable to us. We're accountable to the voters.
I did want to mention that too, because some are questioning if this is a violation of the Brown Act.
You know, people accuse us of violating the law all the time. There's a lot of armchair lawyers out there. We have a general counsel who we have followed the law, and we are going to ratify the formal approval at a public session. But the law allows discussion of personnel matters and litigation and land issues behind closed doors.
Okay.
It's done all the time.
Okay, Cindy, let's get back to your vision that you were talking about. What is your personal vision for the district?
I have a singular focus on achievement, and I can put it in a phrase around vision that I expect to create the conditions, like I've done at my school, around the district, where we create conditions in the public schools for all children to become actively literate, contributing, participating members of society who make a positive difference in the world. That's our charge, to create those conditions. We're not just producing a test score, although the test scores matter. Those are a byproduct of very strong work and strong instructional focus. So that's my vision. At Central, we call it the Central Way. We can sum it up in a little more colloquial terms. The Central Way is work hard, be kind, dream big, no excuses. And I will have no excuses for anything other than strong student achievement.
And when it comes to excuses, the deficit, there's still a deficit at the Unified School District. What methods do you plan to sort of, I guess, employ to try to reach your goals and reach the district goals with this structural deficit?
We have to engage the deficit in a way that's going to use the dollars that we have to most directly impact achievement. And I've led my school over the last 10 years in times when we had lots and lots of money and times when we had lots of cutbacks. And no matter how many dollars we have or how few dollars we have, we still can make strong decisions. So we attack with what is available to us.
And you had mentioned before in our conversation that you didn't want to either or, because that's what always comes up. Does it mean that we're going to have bigger classroom sizes, or are teachers going to have to cut their salaries? Is that an either or question, or you think you can do something else?
You're posing it as an either or question, and it's that's you haven't placed the context. I don't know what year it is that's happening. Depending on the context, depending on the budget that year, depending on the achievement, how many children are we talking about, how many schools? There's no one answer. There are no silver bullets. It's about a dynamic context and a dynamic conversation with all of the stakeholders and board members with different opinions about how to attack a deficit, and we engage that conversation from all points of view.
Well, thank you both so much for taking time out of what I'm sure is a very busy time and talking to us, and we look forward to see what happens next.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The revenue issue is now closed.
We might as well get a pink slip from the office of the Speaker and the Republican Conference.
House Speaker John Boehner and House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi each blasting the other side as the deadline for sequestration approaches. In the House, it was a day of dueling news conferences. In the Senate, 2 votes against competing plans to avoid $85 million in spending cuts. President Barack Obama is scheduled to meet with congressional leaders tomorrow. In the meantime, federal agencies are getting ready to implement the cutbacks. Earlier this week, the White House released a list of potential impacts to California, starting with education, nearly $88 million to be cut from primary and secondary education, more than 8,000 children taken out of Head Start programs, and nearly $63 million cut from special education. Defense programs will be cut by roughly 8%. In San Diego, it could mean the cancellation of shipyard contracts and work at North Island Naval Air Station. Throughout the state, Army and Air Force bases could see operational cutbacks, and more than 64,000 civilian defense workers could be furloughed. While all these possible cuts are looming, there may be a loophole. The law says the president has to order sequestration on March 1st, but it doesn't specify the time. A White House spokesman says President Barack Obama will put the order off as late as possible. That could be 11:59 p.m. and 59 seconds. And as we said earlier, the president is scheduled to meet with congressional leaders tomorrow. His press secretary says he is ever hopeful. In the meantime, preparations are still being made. Peggy Pico takes a closer look at the risk and reality of sequestration.
More tonight on the good, bad, and ugly side of sequestration. Joining me to talk about the likely short and long-term effects throughout the county and in the political arena are my guest, Marney Cox, chief economist with Sandag, and political science professor Carl Luna. Welcome back, both of you. Carl, I have to ask you this off the front. Are Americans, are we really going to fall off this fiscal cliff, or is this just kind of an extreme example of political posturing?
No, we're going to slide down it at least a little ways, because these cuts go into effect tomorrow, and they'll slowly ripple into the economy and build up steam as you go. Congress and the president may sometime in March come back and wave their magic legislative wand and roll everything back to March 1st and undo the sequestration. My question is this going to roll right into the next debt limit increase for the country and really put us in a hole?
Have you seen much evidence, Carl, of local industries here actually preparing for this, panicking? What have you seen or heard about?
I've heard that there are some notices of potential layoffs going off in some of the shipbuilding and industries related to defense contracting. School districts that were celebrating Prop 30 passing are now going, oh great, we're going to lose a little bit of money we don't know about. I think everyone's waiting to see whether or not we're really going to go far into the sequestration problem or not. But I've heard out in Norfolk, there's a discussion of people, 20,000 people whose jobs may be on the line in the region over the next couple of months. I've heard of Border Patrol people who are being told they're going to be taking a 20% pay cut because they're going to miss a day a month. I mean, or a day a week. The pain's going to be felt. It's going to be real.
Certainly here in San Diego, I've heard a whole lot about this. And Marney, the county is heavily dependent on federal funding. What kind of county services are at risk with this sequestration?
Well, about half of it will be Department of Defense cuts, so the other half are social services. And I think, as Carl mentioned, for example, education, National Institutes of Health is another good example of that. San Diego has a very competitive set of universities here, research and development institutions that depend on those grants. So indiscriminate cuts across the border will hurt a lot of areas. One
that's just bubbling up, we've heard about the defense industry and education, is airline security and local tourism. Marney, what do you think could that really affect anything, these cuts?
Well, probably no more than other places. The airline security component, lines get longer, things like that. That's going to happen at all airports, not just San Diego's airports. So, yeah, there'll probably be a little more pain, right? But it'll be felt everywhere. So our visitor industry shouldn't be hurt any worse than anywhere else's. But we have a bigger visitor industry than other places do. So it could have an impact. Yeah.
Long term, not everyone believes this is a bad thing. I know, Marney, I have heard that there's some suggestion that sequestration might actually improve economic growth.
Yeah, actually, as the Congressional Budget Office, sort of the nonpartisan look at this, has basically said that for 1 to 3 years, this is going to cause some pain, jobs will be lost. But after that time period, because you're spending money in areas that really bring no earnings back to the economy. Typically, when we build aircraft carriers or bombs or things like that, it's dead end. But if you shift that money over to the economy where there's earning, that's actually what creates the growth. So in the long run, we actually have a higher rate of growth in the economy with sequestration, despite its inefficiencies and despite its distractions, than we would without it.
Carl, last question. How soon, if everything goes and we slide down that cliff, as you say, how soon till we feel the effects or see any cuts here in San Diego?
Well, it depends on who we are. There are going to be some people who will feel it fairly quickly. People are going to be laid off from contracting work that's not going to be coming in. People will see their pay docked for taking involuntary furloughs. The ripple effect to the economy, by the end of the year, we'll probably all know somebody or felt directly some negative impact on this. The big question after that is who are Americans going to blame for the problem?
Alrighty, we are out of time. Thank you both so much for talking with us. You can find out more details with our continuing coverage online at kpbs.org/sequester.
California drivers will pay the highest gasoline tax in the nation starting this summer. Today, the State Board of Equalization approved a 3.5-cent hike in the state excise tax on gas. On July 1st, it'll be just over 70 cents a gallon. The typical driver will end up paying about $26 more a year. Next month, California's controversial same-sex marriage ban goes before the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, the Obama administration is weighing in. Today, the Justice Department filed a brief asking the High Court to overturn Prop 8. The filing is not legally binding, but could have some influence on the justices. A record number of Californians say they now support same-sex marriage. The field poll found that 61% support a 10% jump in just 2 years. 16 mentally disabled adults who are at risk of homelessness now have a place to live. KPBS reporter Susan Murphy tells us their new lifeline is a restored, century-old hotel in downtown San Diego.
Do you agree with me that ending homelessness in this city is worth doing? Are you all committed to making this happen? Well, I know that you are, and I'm going to be at the front of that parade.
San Diego Councilman Todd Gloria and other city leaders gathered this morning to celebrate the restoration of the Mason Hotel located on 5th Avenue. The structure was destroyed by a fire in 2004, but is now home to 16 residents, including Dallas Edge, who says it's the first time in 13 years that he's had a key to his own home.
It's a community-minded building. I feel very safe. I've got access to all the major buses and trolleys, and access to downtown San Diego.
Each of the 16 studio units has a kitchenette and a private bathroom. The Mason is just one of many low-income housing units in downtown being redeveloped for at-risk homeless people. The San Diego Housing Commission is also renovating the Hotel Sanford, located next door to the Mason. It will soon be home to 130 low-income seniors. And another project on 9th and Broadway recently broke ground and will provide 250 rental agreements for families as well as youth aging out of foster care. Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
Benedict XVI is now officially Pope Emeritus of the Roman Catholic Church. He's now at his summer residence south of Rome. After officially stepping down today, Benedict is the first pope to resign in 600 years. San Diego's Father Joe Carroll says it's an exciting time for Catholics.
Well, this will be a good year for us because number one, getting a new pope will give us a lot of celebrations early. Towards the end of the year, we'll be getting our new bishop will be taken over. And that'll be another infusion in the church. So it's a great time of revitalization.
Hasn't announced when it's going to hold a conclave to elect a new pope. Benedict promised obedience to his successor, saying that he'll be hidden from the world, living a life of prayer. The KPBS and iNewsSource investigations desk has learned that for years, workers at San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station were not up to date with cybersecurity training. The lapse is among a growing list of concerns surrounding the nuclear power plant. Investigations producer Joanne Farian has more.
The investigations desk obtained company documents alerting the plant's majority owner, Southern California Edison, about the lapse in training. Investigative reporter Amitha Sharma broke the story. She joins me now. Amitha, first tell us, what is cyber training?
Cybersecurity training is basically meant to train employees at nuclear plants on how to protect against cyber threats from domestic hackers or foreign hostile governments.
And tell us more about these documents and what they actually said with regard to this training.
Well, what they said was last spring, a worker at San Onofre sent an anonymous message to Southern California Edison, which is the majority owner of this plant. And this worker said that more than half of the employees at San Onofre were not up to date on their cybersecurity training. And he called this lapse embarrassing. And he said that if he were doing an audit at the plant of the program, this would be a major issue.
So what happened? What was the response from the owner?
Well, actually, a manager at the plant did do an audit, and he confirmed what this worker had said in his anonymous message, but he also went a little bit further. He said that he found that 15 senior directors, including the chief nuclear officer, Peter Dietrich, and the man in charge of managing cybersecurity training itself, Doug Bowder, were also not up to date on the cybersecurity training. And this manager said that the training gap could make the nuclear plant more susceptible to cybersecurity threats. And what these documents also showed is that there was a problem with cybersecurity training going all the way back to 2008. And in fact, it said that there had been a lack of cybersecurity awareness and compliance.
So the documents all point to this, but what is the official response now from Southern California Edison when you go to them and you say, look, we've learned this? What did they tell you?
Well, Edison spokeswoman Jennifer Monfrey says that any allegation that the plant is out of compliance with cybersecurity training is categorically false. She says, yes, we did have this on-site training program, but we found it to be duplicative. It was redundant. So we are actually compliant with another set of cybersecurity training rules that are consistent with guidelines put out by the Nuclear Energy Institute. However, she acknowledges that that decision that was made to scrap the on-site training program was made after these memos and warnings were sent that we alluded to earlier.
Now, what about the regulator? Nuclear power plants are regulated by the federal government. What do they say about this?
That's right. They're regulated by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And the NRC says, look, after 9/11, every nuclear plant was required to undergo cybersecurity training. But they said that each and every plant has to have an on-site training program. However, San Onofre does not have to be compliant with it fully until 2015. So there seems to be, they wouldn't talk about these specific concerns raised by the inside employees, and there seems to be a bit of a discrepancy between what they're saying and what San Onofre is saying.
So what's the bottom line? This lapse in training, does it pose a risk?
We don't know. All we can say is that people on the inside raised this concern, and they said that there have been problems dating all the way back to 2008, and they say that this could make the plant more susceptible to a security breach. And again, the NRC won't respond to direct questions regarding these concerns.
We haven't got a lot of time, but we do want to just let the people at home now know that the power plant is currently shut down because of another investigation. Just bring us up to speed on that.
Right. So it has a problem with its steam generators. Southern California Edison says that they want to restart the plant, Unit 2, actually, at 70% capacity, and the NRC is deciding whether or not that's feasible.
Amitha Sharma, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The warming trend continues around the county. Sunshine along the coast Friday and Saturday before clouds move in. Inland, we'll see temperatures in the mid-80s, dropping slightly on Sunday. The mountains will be much cooler with wind, sun, and some clouds, and it's a good time to head to the desert. Temperatures in the mid-80s and lots of sunshine. This is Girl Scout cookie season, but San Diego's Girl Scouts haven't just sold Thin Mints. Many years ago, they also sold Liberty Bonds, and that got them a special honor. Ken Kramer shares this little bit of history about San Diego.
If, as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, then what must a movie be worth? Okay, go back to January of 1920. General John J. Pershing came to San Diego, heroic commander of American forces in World War I. 35,000 people went to hear him speak at the Organ Pavilion in Balboa Park.
The Navy was there, the Navy brass. They had hydroplanes that flew over. The Marine Band played the Star-Spangled Banner. It was quite an event.
Marlene Williams is archivist and historian for Girl Scouts San Diego, and that matters because there's a connection, you see. On that historic day, the general honored a group of Girl Scouts who had sold Liberty Bonds, and one girl in particular. Not only that, but General Pershing gave her a little kiss, too. Thousands heard him speak, hundreds shook his hand, the paper said, but just this one Girl Scout got a kiss. Wow.
The only girl the General kissed, that made it on the front page of the newspaper.
Now Marlene, the historian here, had heard that somewhere there was a film, just a few seconds long, a movie of that event.
And I found an envelope, and it said General Pershing 1920, and I thought, oh my gosh, could this be it?
She sent it off to be digitized, got it back, took a look, and couldn't believe her eyes.
I knew that a film had been made of this event, and I thought, there is no way.
But there it was, John J. Pershing, the man who came to be known as the General of the Armies, saying he had never spoken to so many people before in his life. And then San Diego Girl Scouts, proud as could be, being congratulated each one by perhaps the most famous military man of that time. No sign of the famous kiss, but that's Genevieve on the right getting a handshake. Even to this day, the Girl Scouts San Diego still have the medals she received, and if you wonder why, consider that Genevieve Polly McFall, the girl who met the general and got a kiss, went on to stay in Girl Scouts all her adult life. Became the executive director of Girl Scouts San Diego for 16 years on up to 1963. She never lost her love for it, and if you wonder, Did this day back in 1920 in some way determine her future? Marlene says it just might have.
So she looked back on it very fondly, and it did shape her life, I believe.
The only girl that the general kissed was a Girl Scout for always, and now there are pictures and film to prove that fact about San Diego.
If you want to watch more of Ken's stories about San Diego, his half-hour show can be seen tonight and every Thursday night at 8 here on KPBS. Finally tonight, a look at an experimental movie project called DriveBy Cinema. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando explains how it brings movies to the streets.
Very nice. Oh, very nice, very nice.
Every city has a secret.
Very nice.
So says the tagline for DriveBy Cinema.
Welcome to the official opening of DriveBy Cinema. We just want to surprise people.
The Pacific Arts Movement calls its new DriveBy Cinema program a mobile cinema experiment.
Oh, there it is.
The organization has turned an old U-Haul truck into a traveling cinema that can project movies on walls or on its own portable screen.
We can do DVD, media file from a laptop. We can do Blu-ray, streaming, and we can also stream from the internet as far like we have like wireless internet as well, so we can stream from the internet.
The truck simply parks in a neighborhood and invites people to watch.
This is supposed to be a community engagement project where we sort of just try out what it means to show film in an unexpected area and an unexpected space. Is it possible for the community to come out and watch films not in a theater?
This guerrilla approach makes use of underutilized spaces like a street corner or parking lot. At the official launch 2 weeks ago near the corner of El Cajon Boulevard and Euclid, a lion dance preceded the screening of an old Jackie Chan kung fu movie.
We have no idea what's going to happen, and that's exactly what we want, because we want the people walking through to kind of invent the experience with us. The idea is we want to make cinema that's part of the neighborhood, literally part of the neighborhood.
So keep your eyes peeled for the Pac Arts DriveBy Cinema truck. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us and have a great evening.